Oh, fancy meeting you here on the morning live stream. Are you in denial? Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. At least you aren't in denial of the channel's existence. That's always nice. And let us know in the comments what you're in denial of, whether you're viewing live or in syndication. It's always interesting to hear what people can accept, even when they see it with their own eyes. It's it's like poetry. It's like poetry, only less compact, because the levels of cope have reached astronomical proportions. There are galaxies, entire galaxies with less cope in them than just in the United States as of today. February 8th. And we'll be talking about the regular things that we usually talk, as I try to avoid the subjects that cause my brain to want to melt. You know, finance matters, economics, some of the news stories. Am I allowed to even say the word files without being like censored, sanctioned, banned, silenced, arrested, etc.? Can I say the word files? Incidentally, Windows 11 now has AI features built into File Explorer. That was a good idea, wasn't it? Yeah. Now if you're using Windows 11, when you right click, you'll get an option to get an AI summary. Isn't that great? And what happens is if you click that get AI summary thing, all it does is, and this, I'm sure Microsoft is great at this, all it does is upload the file to the cloud, analyze the file, and then send you a summary over the internet of what your own file is. In other news, you may have noticed this one. The feature of save has been eliminated from, you know, file access on Android devices. So if you're using an Android device, you may have noticed for a long time now. I mean, it's just been like this forever, and people just accept it as if it's normal. There's no save feature anymore. Next time you take a photograph, go to your photograph on your Android device and try to save it. Try to save it. I mean, I defy you to do that. You're not going to be able to. That's my point. Because there is no save. Save has been replaced by share. Like, the big tech organizations are just putting the spyware right in your face and saying, look, this is spyware. You're welcome. It's free. Isn't that great? It's not full of bugs or anything. No, pardon my sarcasm. You show me an Android piece of software that isn't rife with bugs, glitches, and errors. They all are. So, but I would invite you to show me one that's not. There probably is some open source stuff out there that works perfectly, exactly as it's designed. And, that brings me to another point. Open source OSs, they're the only way with an encrypted drive and encrypted everything, apps, and a VPN, you can actually have a private and secure computer, and it's open source and free. Like Linux, Mint, Cinnamon, Ubuntu. There are many, many free open source operating systems. And I'm sure with the advent of Microsloth, AI everywhere, and barely functional software, that a lot of people will start to use open source software. Open source OSs are pretty valuable. These things have some of the world's best computer nerds constantly patching the software because it's open source. And since it's open source, they can see what's in the kernel, the actual program code. So you can't do that with Android. You can't do that with Microsoft. Can't do it with Apple. These are proprietary softwares. And so they're not going to be clear as to what they do. I'll just say that. So yeah, there are zero bug-free apps. And let's get into things like the weather. on Earth and in space. So, of course, we want to know what you're up to, and what are you making this Sunday? We're making a massive pork roast, making about a 3-pound pork roast. I think I'm going to do it in sweet hot. Maybe I'll release the recipe later. But anyway, here are the past 12 hours of actually the past 6 hours. We have a massive prominence kicking off here, up there in that northwestern limb. So we spend most of the time on the channel talking about things like space and Earth weather, other science topics, and so forth. So thanks for tuning in, everybody who has. Once again, congratulations on realizing the channel exists. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to press the subscribe button, and most importantly, that share button. You can also find links to our homepage and other links in the description. Please visit those, help support the channel however you see fit. So hopefully you are fit. And that's something that we'll be helping with. We'll be doing more videos about BikeTube and so forth. Let me drop the homepage in the comments, because we want you to be able to simply click the homepage, and then you can find us on social media. If you do press that share button, hopefully you follow us on Twitter, known to insane lunatic cultists as X. So press that share button and help to make up for some of the lack of promotion of our channel by the algorithm. So anyway, there is this is the world's most comprehensive daily space weather content, by the way. Nobody else puts out the detail that we do, and we do keep it completely devoid of propaganda, fraud, and other nonsense. So there's that. And remember, folks, fraud is the intentional misrepresentation of material facts. So, you know, when you see that, you should call it out. So check out this massive prominence up here in this northwestern limb. We also have a crown prominence up here, kind of coming around from the far side there, further to the east. And we do have some new active regions that look like they're rising here. They're pretty minor. And of course, sunspot 4633 is approaching the limb. It still does harbor some significant magnetic fields, which we will analyze momentarily. So as far as space weather and so forth, an important feature would be the X-ray flux. And we just did have a double pop M-class flare. Pardon my gruff voice. It's very dry in winter when it's like 0 degrees out. And I've already gone for a morning walk. It's on the cool side. That was my thumbnail. But yeah, so we had an M1.7. 2 little pops there, 1.3 and a 1.7 M-class event just recently here. Let's take a look at those. What's up with that? So right around 11:20 Universal Time. So right here at the end of this, we should see about an hour ago. So yeah, that appears to be from the trailing end, this back portion here of sunspot 4633. And that is where we did state last time we did a video about this, that's where we expected to see flaring, if there was any large flaring. Keep in mind, folks, there is about a 4% higher chance of a flare or a large flare at the limb. So we do have some huge filaments as well, and there are some coronal holes involved now. So let's take a look at 195 angstroms. I'll briefly look at coronal holes. And here you can see this south pole oriented one here up near the north heliographic polar region. So that's another ionized iron wavelength, folks. That's extreme ultraviolet, 195 angstroms from the GOES 19. Let's look at a current image here from SDO while we're on the subject. Take a brief look at the magnetic fields. So So there's the HMI continuum. That's what those sunspots look like, and that's still quite a complex sunspot group. You can see this leading umbra, a little bit larger than the Earth there in terms of its diameter. Keep in mind these things are very flat, at least as far as we can tell. Those black sections appear to be very flat, and that might be part of the reason why they look very dark in color, but we won't talk about that on this video too much. Here's our magnetogram, and you can see, oh wow, we have, when you go from north to south, if you see varying magnetic fields when drawing a latitude line here, north to south, south to north, these areas of magnetic shear, these are where you can expect to see flares. So if I add 171 angstroms, you'll see a bunch of magnetic filaments. So you can see there is quite a bit of plasma here suspended by the complex magnetic fields of this sunspot group 4633. That's what you want to see if you'd like to see large flares. And let's just briefly, I'm just going to zoom out here for a brief moment and take a quick look at these other sunspots. They are all less magnetically complex. This one here has a little bit of beta gamma class going on. In fact, that might even be beta gamma delta class. So this one looks like it's actually improving in terms of its flare production. And there's 171 angstroms. You can see quite a bit of plasma suspended by that as well. These sunspots, they cause huge solar filaments to be suspended by the magnetic fields way up hundreds of thousands of kilometers into space. There's our cosmic ray monitor. That's just the Olu neutron monitor. There's one of our cosmic ray producers, our only known cosmic ray point source, high mass X-ray binary Cygnus X3. That's just the X-ray output of it. And let's see if there are any additional new CMEs on the way. If any were generated from those M-class flares that we just covered earlier just earlier today, those are not going to be modeled yet, but let's see if we have any modeled by University Reading. So there is a coronal hole high-speed stream there on the way. It's a few days out. That is a much stronger coronal hole high-speed stream. As you can see, it's like a double stream, and it's going to be quite long-lived. That'll be when the North Pole-oriented magnetic sector arrives, though. That's a few days out. So right now, according to U Reading, no new coronal mass ejections on the way. As far as solar wind stuff goes, we still do have an elevated solar wind speed at 450 kilometers per second, but that's not super fast, folks. That's pretty chill. Solar wind density here, just about 3 protons per cubic centimeter. That's a nominal solar wind density. And the fields are pretty nominal as well here. Not too exciting. Total field of 6 nanotesla with a BZ of +2. They are measured at Lagrangian point 1. We won't linger on that. They orbit this gravitational equilibrium point. That data was from ACE. Once again here, that's the green line you see there. And moving right along here, a brief look at Earth's magnetosphere for the past 4 hours or so. And things are calm for space weather, so that's what you can expect with these light solar wind conditions. I don't think we got the geomagnetic storm that NOAA was forecasting, and if you saw the video 2 days ago, I was disagreeing with NOAA's forecast. So that's another successful forecast by the channel there. And the GOES magnetometers here, they're pretty smooth as well. Again, no geomagnetic storm conditions, so no big perturbations out there in the outer Van Allen belts where the GOES 19 and GOES 18 orbit geosynchronously. Yesterday we talked briefly about the solar cycles. We won't worry about that today, but NOAA's forecast has a mild geomagnetic storm tonight in the forecast. There you can see some geomagnetic unrest. That is anticipated arrival of a coronal mass ejection from the 3rd. So I don't know what that's all about. But there is a South Pole oriented coronal hole. That is why the solar wind speed has been elevated for the past few days. But that's been a sort of a spotty and sporadic coronal hole high speed stream. So yeah, a little bit of geomagnetic unrest. This is not likely to spark mid-latitude aurorae for Sunday night into Monday morning, February 9th. Some more solar stats for you here. The 10.7 centimeter radial flux came up a little bit here, but it's kind of finding its level around 172 solar flux units. We're currently at about 169 solar flux units. 169 SFU solar flux units is the 10.7. Sunspot number here came up a little bit. I believe that's growth in those eastern groups. We'll look at the evolution of those momentarily. Sunspot number here coming back up to 150. So right at 150 there. 150 sunspots is the current easy to remember number. Next, how about some GOES 19 coronagraph action? I don't think there are any new CMEs on the way. And again, if those M-class flares from this morning generated any coronal mass ejections, not only are they not likely to strike Earth because of the location of 4633, they're not going to show up on that data yet. So here is our stereo A coronagraph. We'll just show this briefly from the Integrated Space Weather Analysis Center. Earth would be off to your left from this perspective, and it looks like a bunch of missing data anyway. Let me bring that back. I think it was just loading. No, I'm not sure. It looks like missing data. But yeah, there's no indication that there are any new CMEs headed toward Earth. And frankly, I don't know what Noah's talking about. Why would a CME from the 3rd take 5 or 6 days to arrive? That's just ridiculous. What is it, traveling at 100 kilometers per second? That's not going to show up in the solar wind data. So I don't know what Noah's talking about. So next is this is where planets are located. We just like to show this so people are oriented. Keep in mind, this is not space weather. Space weather only takes place between Earth's D layer of the ionosphere and the sun's photosphere. That's sort of the extent of space weather. It's about a 93 million mile area. As far as solar energetic particles go, we ain't got none. The GOES proton flux is at baseline levels. There's a closer look at those. This is actually a long duration flare here, but it only did reach an M1.7 approximately, so not super strong. And again, since that sunspot is located close to that northwestern limb, it's unlikely to, produce an Earth-directed CME. Let me just detach this here for everybody's convenience, especially mine. And we'll come back to that in a moment. Anyway, there's the one-day chart for the GOES 18 and GOES 19's X-ray detectors. And let's see if Earth has entered that North Pole magnetic sector yet. Huh. What is it? Why is it not? Why is it doing this? It's preparing to load, like in Spaceballs, when they're preparing to search. Preparing to search, folks. Oops, the site can't be reached. It took too long to respond. Stop doing DDoS attacks on the Gong site while I'm trying to do the stream. Let's try again. This one's not going to do anything different. It's going to do the exact same thing because it's the same server. Preparing to load. Whoops, it's not going to work. It ain't going to happen. The Gong site is down, folks. The Gong site is down, which is suboptimal because we're going to use that for various things. So instead, let's head back to HelioViewer, and I'll just manually go through and take a look at this sunspot group because I want to see how this one has evolved here. So we're going to go back hour by hour. All right, so this is 12:47 Universal Time. Let me actually, I'm going to get rid of 171 angstroms. We'll just look at the magnetic. Let's just look at the intensity gram first, the continuum from HMI instrument. And I'm just going to go back an hour at a time. So that's 1147, 1047, 947, 847, 747, 647. Let's go back in some larger intervals here. How about 6-hour intervals? So that's actually pretty stable here. This one hasn't changed too much. As you can see, it's largely the same number of umbrae there. It's lost some of the umbrae in the trailing section, and no, that's not cooperating either. That's fun. Are the gong sites back? I think they are. They're coming back slow. They're trickling back, folks. All right, so just bear with me a minute here. I'm going to get the data regardless. And let's go back to HelioViewer. Let's actually look at this. We're going to show this with 171 angstroms so you can sort of see the plasma filaments. Well, we hope we're going to get it. All right. So we're going to do 6-hour intervals here. And we're going to go back from the newest. So this is 1247 Universal Time. 647. 0 dark 47. Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of activity there. So that's something. So who the GNU are you? 8682. Thanks for leaving a comment. That is the sun, the closest star, El Sol. So that's why the branding of the channel looks like it does. We do space weather, the world's most comprehensive daily space weather content. So anyway, here's just another look at, we're going to advance this one to the current imagery as well, 4633. So that's 1847 yesterday. There's 0 dark 47. And as you can see, there's still quite a bit of plasma trapped in these magnetic fields right here. And that is what can happen. You can create some major instability with that. And, you know, that's what you want when you want to see space weather, like coronal mass ejections and especially solar flares. So let me check and see if the gong is back. Please be back, gong. I really like the gong data. It's very good. Probably shouldn't try to load all the pages at once, but it looks like some bandwidth is back. Some bandwidth is back, folks. Maybe all the bandwidth has been diverted from the websites in order to facilitate ridiculous Sunday morning politics news shows. Maybe that's what's going on, right? Those are fun. Everybody wants to watch those, don't ya? Don't ya? Baladi921 says, so cool, I love the sun. Yeah, cheers. The Parker Solar Probe was and is awesome. Not just was, it's still on its mission. Just the fastest object ever built by mankind. No big deal. All right, so here is, oh man, preparing to load. Oh, dude, come on. Well, at least we have the line of sight. Oh, it's not. It's loaded 15 of. Oh, dude, not good. I don't think that data is going to work out, folks. It's not looking. It's not looking promising. The gong site appears to be down. By the way, make sure you follow us on Twitter, what insane cultists refer to as X. And please don't follow the wizards of AI off a cliff. If you think they're going to create an AI utopia, please fill me in when they're going to create one bug-free smartphone app. Now, I realize that your smartphone apps are just nothing but spyware, but still, they should still do what is claimed that they do. Wouldn't you say? Show me one bug-free smartphone app and stop believing NASA's lies, folks. Jeez, visit the links in the description and help support the channel, because we help to debunk nonsense on the internet. It's super easy to do. Most nonsense on the internet just requires like about 4 seconds of research, and then people's disinformation goes right down the drain. It's adorable. And we have more cultists on planet Earth in 2026 than ever in history. If you thought there were a lot in 2020, well, there are now more. Anyway, this is the GOES electron flux. This is the measurement of the F layer of the ionosphere. So these satellites, the GOES 19 and GOES 18, they're orbiting at about 26,000 miles of altitude. And as they do, they use radiography to count the electrons. It's literally particle counts. You look over here, it's particles per negative squared centimeter. And this is literally particle counts for the electrons in the F layer. That's what the GOES 19 and GOES 18 are doing there. And that gives us insight into how many free ions are in the F layer of the ionosphere. So this is going to give you ideas of where your GPS is going to work badly. And you're going to have pretty bad GPS performance here around the Earth, especially around the equator at noontime. So, oh, you love cosmology. I almost majored in cosmology. So, so anyway, yeah, this is literally all of the free electrons from your handset all the way down, all the way up to the GPS satellites that you use. So again, those things are like 26,000 miles away. That's how they maintain their very low energy and obviously low speed geosynchronous orbits, because they're geosynchronous. And when your GPS has to communicate with your handset, those free ions, they cause signal refraction. So these areas, you're going to see GPS errors of thousands of miles in there. And, you know, if you're a cyclist or a hiker or somebody who really like relies on GPS, just be aware of that. You know, between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. or something like that in the mid-latitudes where we're located in Lehigh Valley, PA, that's where you typically see some errors. And I've seen some errors, to say the least. Now, we're not expecting a whole lot of radio blackouts here around the equator today, but there could be. And of course, we just had an M-class double flare, so you will see some radio blackouts. Because around 11:20 Universal Time this morning, we did have a double M-class flare. So over the African continent here, or maybe the Central Atlantic, you'll see that happen. This is the deabsorption region predictions. This is just showing where your radio signal is likely to go off into space instead of refracting down to your radio target. So that's space weather is going to become only more important as time goes on, with the emphasis on private space flight. And there's that double M-class flare that happened earlier this morning and into this afternoon Universal Time. Again, it started at about 11:20 Universal Time. So these are just the layers of the ionosphere. Please note that the F layer does change altitudes at nighttime, and it's because the layers of the ionosphere, they puff up in the daytime under the daytime sun because of the incoming radiation, both infrared and ultraviolet. These layers become double layers, and they become a little bit, they puff up both ways. And so that's what this is showing you here. This is the sun side. The night side, those layers do vary, and that's just kind of how the Earth system operates. We like to show that just like the diagrams of the planets, so people understand where things are located. The D layer, this is where space weather begins. So points above this would be space weather. Points below this would be Earth weather. For example, the Schumann resonances, they reflect off of the D layer and then back down to the lithosphere. Basically, the distance from the D region to the lithosphere is sort of what determines what's going on with the Schumann resonances for the most part. But again, keep in mind that the D region, it does vary in altitude between daytime and nighttime. Hopefully that helps a little bit about Earth weather and space weather. Here's just a map of the ionosphere. We're going to animate it today because I haven't looked at this for a couple of days. And I want to see if there's anything funky going on with the South Atlantic anomaly, as it has been wandering. The wandering South Atlantic anomaly, it is Earth's weakest point in its magnetosphere. And it's been moving around. It's been over the South American continent. It's been over the South Atlantic Ocean. It's been over the Pacific Ocean. And there's another weak spot here by Africa. It's not quite as significant, but when satellites pass through this part of the Earth space, the ionosphere is dipping down essentially, and that causes a lot of matter to be. It causes a lot of friction on those spacecraft, and it increases fuel consumption. It causes some spacecraft to turn off while they go through there to avoid the charging hazards associated with all those free ions, and so it matters mainly for spacecraft. And you can actually see that the South Atlantic anomaly looks like it's still here around the equatorial west coast of South America. So it's way up here by the equator now. And it's not surprising that this thing is going to move around because Earth's magnetosphere is a dynamic thing. It's the poles are always moving, probably. We don't expect that the poles ever just sit in the same spot because of how Earth's magnetic field is generated, which is something that we're not going to really get into in this video because, look, it's not fully understood. It's more theoretical. You can only see so deep into the Earth, but through seismology and many, many other sciences, like material science and geophysics and so forth, we do have some insight into how it works. And this is not loading either. That's optimal. Pardon my sarcasm. Let's try this again. I want to show the anomalygram in megahertz from a 30-day median because, come on, what is up with that? All right, there we go. So here's the raw megahertz. This is just depicting the rate of vibration. You'll notice that it's much higher on the daytime side of the planet and much lower on the nighttime side. That's not a coincidence. And it is because of that incoming solar radiation that I talked about earlier. It causes the ionosphere to get excited. But there it is in megahertz. That's millions of vibrations per second, like what we used to measure computer processor speeds with in the 1980s. Megahertz. It megahertz when people don't know what units are in science. If you say a number without units, it's meaningless. If you take a test and report and you answer on a test, you put a number down on a science test and there's no units with the number, you've gotten that one wrong. Belati 921, there was a coronal mass ejection, but not recently, and not one headed toward Earth at the moment. Steak can cheese says, oh, nice name, steak can cheese. That's a good one. So that goes opposite of how the surface level moves. Yes, the weather goes, Earth weather moves from west to east. So Vicky 1380 vibrations, good or bad for the human body? They're not relevant to the human body because the F layer of the ionosphere, which is what we're looking at here, is between 200 and 300 kilometers of altitude. So that is nowhere near you. And so it's not going to be affecting the human body. This affects things in space. And keep in mind, there are many layers of atmosphere that are in between the ionosphere and the ground level. So below the D layer, you have the mesosphere. And below the mesosphere, you have the stratosphere. And below that, you have the troposphere. That's where all weather occurs, more or less. I mean, you could make the argument that some weather does occur in the stratosphere. Some cloud tops are high enough that they're in the stratosphere. That affects the average water content of the stratosphere and so forth. But the stratosphere is primarily made of ozone, not water vapor. And water vapor is responsible for what we call weather. So you can really see the South Atlantic anomaly is right in this area here by the equatorial west coast of South America. You can clearly see that the African anomaly is by the equatorial west coast of Africa. Does that portend doomsday? I don't see why it would. Megahertz, I mean, no, megahertz I don't know what you mean. It depends on what's vibrating, Vicky. If you're, for example, if you're vibrating at a speed of 9 megahertz, That's 9 million vibrations per second. You're not really gonna feel that. So it depends on what's vibrating. It's what's vibrating here is the actual matter in the ionosphere. Because this is essentially heat. It's just that the ionosphere is really hot. So even though it's space, the ionosphere is very, very hot. It wouldn't feel hot because there's insufficient matter to heat you up, but there's a lot of radiation there. So it's space, and the minimal number of particles really get affected by the incoming solar radiation. 420 megahertz. All right, so anyway, that's the ionosphere, and let's move into the realm of Earth weather. So hopefully that helped all of you. If anybody who's not too familiar with space weather, hopefully that helps a little bit. Again, space weather, we're leveraged in space weather for a reason here, and it's because it's only going to become increasingly important. It's going to be part of a regular old everyday weather forecast that you just see on the regular everyday local news and stuff. And it's going to be because, look, you're going to be able to do private space flight for 5 figures I'll say within 18 months. I mean, you can already get into space for 6 figures. But when it makes it to 5 figures, people are actually going to go. The average price of a Super Bowl ticket I heard is $5,900. So with the devaluation of the US dollar at the levels that it is, expect to be able to go to space for 5 figures in less than 2 years. Like that's inevitable in my opinion. So in any case, let me put your chats back on the screen here. There you go. There are your actual chats. Thanks to everybody who's commented. Once again, if you're new to the channel, don't forget to press subscribe. Congratulations on realizing it exists. We're frankly surprised with the pathetic and putrid state of censorship on the internet. So extreme weather in the forecast. I mean, we've got extreme weather here in Lehigh Valley. We'll get into it in a minute. But first, the lovely sunrise over the Atlantic, which we typically show most days here on the channel. There it is. There's the blue globe and grayscale from one of them there GOES satellites. That is the GOES East. Oh yes, it's so good. By the way, don't believe NASA's lies about the shape of the Earth. I know that thing looked like a sphere, but that's just because they're projecting the real croissant Earth onto a spherical Photoshop template. Right? Right? Earth isn't shaped like a pizza or a snow globe or a banana. Of course not. It's shaped like the French breakfast pastry. What are you, some kind of nut? You think Earth is an oblate spheroid? Like, what is wrong with you? Why do you believe all of NASA's lies like that? Didn't you know NASA was formed by an actual Nazi? Didn't you know that the first space flight was the V-2 rocket, a terror weapon? So duh, obviously NASA is trying to cover up the fact that Earth is shaped like a croissant. Join the Croissant Earth Society and stop believing NASA's lies. Links in the description to that and much more interesting products. Much more hilarious products than that. We don't meme normal on this channel because, well, put it this way. Just like the song, The Smashs of Hazard says, I've been getting in trouble on social media before social media was anywhere near existing. And MySpace still is probably better than Feces Book. 0 degrees in Connecticut says me.coffee. Thanks for the update, man or gal. And we got a low here off the coast of the Atlantic, in the North Atlantic there, and it is that is a very strong low. Look at the massive gradient there. Although it is entrained with dry, massive air, I wonder if there is dust involved. We'll look at dust today, if I remember. But that's what's going on in the U.S. Atmospheric river flowing in once again. Let's look at that so I can say a buzzword 84 times and make people spooked of naturally occurring weather phenomena. Oh no, folks, atmospheric river. Oh my God. It's like the atmospheric Niagara Falls. Dude, put on your scuba gear right now because atmospheric river, bro. This is an opportunity to buy crypto, bro. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Please do not take investment advice from this channel. That's where you lost me. Earth shape. Bye. Good luck. I've alienated a viewer with jokes. That's that. I love that. All right, so yeah, there's this atmospheric river, and that is the Banzai Express. There are huge kinks in the jet stream that are pulling a bunch of moisture from the Pacific past Hawaii up toward Alaska and then blasting it down from Canada with a bunch of cold Arctic air. Thanks, Canada. You're doing a fine job as our 51st state. I think they're going to rename Canada to Trumpville, by the way. Trumpville. Anyway, there's a U.S. Doppler radar, and of course, the Pacific Northwest contains a bunch of moisture, a bunch of rain. As Great Lakes area effect, snow continues on and on for days, and on and on. Oklahoma City, things are clearing up, and you'll have scattered showers in a little while. That's radar.weather.gov. Good God, she thought I really think Earth is shaped like a croissant. That's adorable. All right, so for our Lehigh Valley viewers, check it out, 3 degrees Fahrenheit at Lehigh Valley International Airport. That's on the cool side, wouldn't you say? Anyway, today's forecast for the area is wind chill values as low as negative 19, with a high near 14. Tomorrow, heat wave, high near 27. Tuesday, it's going to get above freezing for the first time in, I think, over a week. 34 degrees on Tuesday. Get out your lounge chairs and your towels. It's time to go sunbathing. 34 for a high on Tuesday. And 36 on Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. I like mispronouncing the names of... Look at the freaking snow here that is east of Ontario. Dude. 52.4 inches of snow piled up there. Dag. That is... that is a lot of snow. Yowzers. All right, so yeah, and anyway, that's the snow depth map for the U.S. Let's just show something different here. How about, let's see, what can we look at that we don't normally look at? Icing? Icing for aircraft? That's interesting. Let's look at sea surface temperature for once. So there's a sea surface temperature of the good old blue globe. As you can see, the Gulf Stream is still making it up here to Scotland and Norway and so forth. So if you're expecting that the NAO to shut down, I don't know when that's going to happen, but not this winter apparently, because look, it's still running fine. The Northern Hemisphere is not going to go into an apocalyptic icing. Maybe. Oh, watch out, folks. Greenland's going to magically melt this year because reasons. You'll have articles about it in spring because every spring they say, oh my God, a bunch of fresh water is making it into the Atlantic, as it does every year as Greenland gets 20 hours of sun and so forth. But I digress. Here's our lightning map, and we do have some Baja California lightning. Let us know in the comments if you want to do the Baja 500. I do. It's going to be a thing. We're going to do the Baja 500, folks. I'm not kidding. I ain't no lying son of a bit turn. I don't gotta cope. All right? I don't gotta cope. I've got reality. When I say stuff that sounds outrageous, you know why I say it? You know why it's funny? Because it's real. Because it's true. Because it's factual. That's why I say outrageous stuff. So if you don't feel like listening, terribly sorry, definitely press unsubscribe. Like, that's on you. You decide not to watch the content. That's on you, dudes. All right, let's look at total positive snow depth change. I want to see if any additional white stuff is coming because, well, this winter has been very long, arduous, and frankly, insane. So, while I love it, I also hate it. Hey, thanks for leaving comments there. Steak and cheese. That sounds delicious, by the way. Steak and cheese. Do you mean cheesesteaks? Because cheesesteaks are one of my favorite foods of all time. That and wings. Cheesesteaks and wings, I could pretty much eat those every day. And pretty much anything at a Chinese restaurant. But I digress. That's the snow forecast and some heavy snows here coming with that Pineapple Express. That's a 72-hour GFS total accumulated positive snow depth change forecast in inches. Dag. What happened? Yeah, I'm showing you the wrong forecast. That's what happened. Hey, sorry about that. There's the correct one. There, look at the dates, folks. That is the 7th. That is the 8th through, well, that's into the 10th. What the heck? Let me just try this again because I don't know if it didn't load the right dates. There we go. The 8th into the 11th. That's your 72-hour GFS total accumulated positive snow depth change in inches. That's better. I thought the last one looked the same as a couple days ago. There we go. You're going to have some heavy California snow here. So some late season snow here as we are about to be out of the last, the coldest part of the winter. Once you get to mid-February, folks, once you hit Valentine's Day, the temperatures start coming up. So don't be surprised if you're one of our local viewers in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania area. Don't be surprised to see a day approaching 70 degrees in the month of February. Sierra Nevada. You mean the pale ale? Or do you mean the mountains? I prefer the pale ale, but the mountains are pretty sweet too. Yeah, so some heavy snows there. Some areas expecting 4 feet of snow in California. Shout out to Smash Staff's mom. I think this one's going to miss her. But that could change as that is a 72-hour forecast and things get turbulent in the mountains. Anyway, let's look at dust. I promised I was going to show dust, sort of. So here is dust. Oh, we got to be at the surface level here. There's the surface wind scenario. And we'll switch to particulates. There's the DUX. And the DUX is showing you optical thickness 550 nanometers. And that is nullschool.net, by the way. It's a fantastic data site. And this is the dust I was talking about here. The Saharan dust is pretty chill right now. Those of you who are not aware, the Saharan dust does blow across the Atlantic Ocean. It's part of the reason why the Caribbean and Leeward Island are so fertile. And also it does contribute to beautiful sunsets in the Australia of the U.S., Florida, a giant sandbar that people live on purpose. It's insane. Can't believe people intentionally moved to Florida. My mom did it. Anyway, here are the surface winds of the planet. There's a strong low here on the upper left corner, the northwest corner of Australia. As you can see, rotating clockwise here, as they do in the southern hemisphere. Here are the jet streams of the eastern world. Shout out to our viewers from all around the planet. We're about to close out this stream. If you've got any comments to leave, please do so. Have a blessed day as well. The ever-loving outdoors. I love the outdoors. Anyway, there is the jet stream scenario of the central world. Shout out to our African, European, and Mideast viewers. Here are the surface winds like sands through the hourglass of time. These are the surface winds of the Western Hemisphere's lives. And these are the jet streams. Huge kinks in the jet stream here in the western portion and the eastern Pacific. And a very strong jet stream. It's a day for fast flights to Europe. You want to fly to Portugal, you're going to get there fast today. You're going to show up early ahead of schedule if you fly from, say, Miami to Portugal. Because jet streams, yes, I can forecast where turbulence will happen for you. So if you're taking a flight, let me know. I'll tell you how much radiation you can expect to absorb and where the turbulence will happen. Anyway, I'm just going to look at ocean here for a minute because I want to see lot like waves. And look at the North Atlantic. It is a freaking death trap right now. The North Atlantic is freaking bonkers, folks. I mean, we'll put surface winds and look, we got 40 footers up here. 37.8 foot waves at that spot. 34.2 waves at that spot. That is not a place to be rowing a Viking longboat. What would Leif Erikson say? He would say, I'm missing most of this because anyway, you get the idea. But those are the waviest places in the world. The North Atlantic is pretty turbulent at the moment. I would not want to be on an open top rowboat out there. What say you? Anyway, we're going to close this thing out with some more solar imagery. And any other comments you have, maybe I'll just let this play for an hour. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that because YouTube will not take kindly to that. So, so yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody who has. And yeah, if you've got any comments you'd like covered, we're going to show a couple different views here. So as that slider runs across, we'll bring up some different imagery here. That's 131 angstroms. That's the hottest wavelength that we look at in extreme ultraviolet for both the SDO and the GOES-19. It's another species of ionized iron, a different number of electrons in the outer shell than the 195 angstroms wavelength, and the 94 angstroms, and the 171 angstroms, and so on. Here's the house favorite. I think we'll close out with 94 angstroms. And you can see this huge prominence up here. You can actually call it a crown prominence now because it is close enough to the polar region. Crown prominences are things that typically only happen around solar maximum. And we are only about a year and 4 months beyond solar maximum right now. So you can expect solar activity to be declining here for the next couple of years. We'll close out on that one. Of course, you can see the activity here with sunspot 4633's trailing umbrae. And that's about where it's time to close this thing out. So I'll let that play through. And maybe more content later today. It's entirely possible. Maybe we'll even make a reaction video. Maybe another stream. And likely to create some shorts. So anyway, we'll see you soon here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. And until next time, may that nonsense be absent from your YouTube subscription feed. And may that solar wind be at your back.